Well, now as you can see, this little monitor is working just as intended.
Tanner, Tech, Tanner, Tech, Tanner, Tanner, Tech, Tanner, Tech, Tanner. Hello, this is Tanner Tech.
And today I'm going to be showing you how to make an FPV remote controller. Now, I'm going to be building a quadcopter in these next few videos, and it's going to be a pretty cool quadcopter that can fly around and get some cool video, so I can have fun with that. Now, FPV goggles cost a lot of money, and I don't want to use that much money on something like FPV goggles, so I decided to make a cheaper alternative. So I have this controller right here. It's an HK T6A, and I also have this TFT screen with a little sticky thing on the back. Came from China. Got a little RCA cable on it. And then I have my FPV receiver. This thing takes in the radio waves that are sent out by the FPV transmitter into its clover antenna, and it demodulates them back into the RCA or composite video signal that can be fed into this TFT display. Now, I'm also going to be powering all of these components using this battery, which is a lithium-ion battery that goes to about 12 volts. Now, I could use the AA's that come in the back of this controller, but this altogether draws about 3 watts, and that would drain those AA batteries extremely quickly. So I'm just going to be running everything off this rechargeable lithium-ion battery, which will not discharge as quickly. Now, everything is going to be mounted onto this controller to make things easier to access. So that way, while you're flying, you can watch this screen and see what the drone sees. So, let's get started building this thing. First thing we're going to do is fire up our soldering iron, so that way we can use it to connect some of the wires. Now, if we take a look at this TFT display, this screen, it has these bulky RCA jacks, and it's going to be kind of a pain to have these RCA jacks just hanging around the controller. Even if I tie them up, they're still bulky. So I'm just going to wire this FPV receiver directly into the TFT display. I'll do that by cutting these leads that go to the RCA jacks on here, and wiring those leads directly into the back and soldering them on to the PCB. So let's disassemble this little screen right here. I'll use a screwdriver. So now that we have the screen removed, we can see that we have our wire coming inside here, and it is soldered to the PCB. There are 4 wires going into this PCB. We have positive, ground, video 1, and video 2. We won't need video 2, so we'll just use video 1 in this instance. We'll just have to connect this to the RCA jacks of the FPV transmitter and directly solder them in. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to desolder these 4 wires. I'm also going to drill 2 holes in the back of this plate for the back of the screen. Now what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to take this FPV receiver. I'm going to connect the analog video, positive, and ground to this little board inside that displays on the screen. I will also save the audio RCA jack for a later time because I will eventually add a speaker to this to hear what the drone sees. But for right now, this is not necessary. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to route the wires out of this to this little FPV receiver box. Now after that, I'm going to take a wire and connect the 2 positive and negative wires of this screen to the battery right here, and to this little FPV receiver, and to the actual remote control itself. So I'll desolder all the wires. We can then hot glue this little piece of plastic, which is the FPV receiver, onto the back of this screen, and then we can drill holes to mount the power wires for this FPV receiver and the analog video input for the FPV receiver. Okay, so here's the inside of the display screen. As you can see, I have all the power and ground wires hooked up. Then I have the video composite signal going to one of the pins on this circuit board, or video 1. That is all going out here to the little FPV receiver, and then I have the total power wires coming out to go to the receiver and to go to the battery pack. Now that this part is wired, I can put back all the screws inside the screen and give it a little test to see if it runs correctly. So I'll push everything back together. Well, now as you can see, this little monitor is working just as intended. As you can see, I have it hooked up to the FPV receiver. And as you can see, you are getting the video from my FPV transmitter, which is right over here. It is recording the video from this camera and sending it from this cloverleaf antenna to this cloverleaf antenna. Now, as you can see, the image quality is not the greatest, but it still looks fairly good for being an FPV camera. It'll definitely be good for flying around outside and having fun with my little drone. Alright, now that your screen is done and it has everything mounted onto it, we can set it aside and start to prepare the remote controller for connecting it. So we're going to open the battery case and we're going to find the 2 battery ports inside here. And this is where we're going to connect the 2 wires that will go to the actual battery that's going to power this whole thing, and that's going to go to these 2 wires that power the FPV receiver. So now that you have this done, you can take this battery connector and you can attach 2 wires to it. And these 2 wires will go to a longer cable. But in the middle, about 4 inches from this connector, you should slice away some of the wire to put some solder there. Now this is where we're going to solder in our 2 connectors that go to the screen. So what I'll do is I will just set this here and solder them on. Now that all the wiring is in place, we have the battery connector coming out the back, and we have this connector to power the actual controller. So let's take this, and we'll use the little piece of 3M sticky stuff on the back to attach this little screen to the controller. So I'll take it, and I'll just gently set it on top of the controller, and it should look good. We can then take the wire that goes to both the battery and the FPV receiver screen, and we can take it and we can hook it up to the battery terminals in the back of the remote controller. We'll then use solder to connect them to the terminals. This will complete our FPV controller, and then all we'll have to do is add the battery. Now it's time to hook up your battery. So you can put your controller up, and you can take your battery, which is going to be this lithium-ion battery, and you can use these little pieces of Velcro tape to connect your battery and secure it to the controller. Now with the battery installed, you can connect it to the little cable and see it work. So this little FPV remote controller is pretty cool, and this is going to be used on my next video where I show you how to actually build a racing drone. And it will be really cool to look at and play with. So as you can see, the video is transmitting from my desk just fine, going through this little cloverleaf antenna into the video receiver, and that is being powered by this battery in the back, which is also powering this remote controller. So that way it can be turned on and used to control the aircraft you want to fly. So overall, I think this design is really cool, and it's a lot better than buying one of those expensive FPV remote controllers or the screens that slide onto it, because in total this probably costs about 30 bucks instead of buying one of the expensive ones that costs about $50 or $60. So it's always good to build your own stuff, and I think it looks pretty cool, and it's going to be really useful for FPVing. So as always, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for next time. I'm going to be showing you how to build your own FPV racing drone, and it will be really cool because I have built it for under $150, which is pretty cheap for a really good FPV racing drone. So as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time. Now it's time to take this to my controller right here. Oh, something happened.